Hello folks, hope you're having a wonderful day. It's time for some more hobby nightmares, and on today's episode we have two stories. The first is about how hentai has spoiled a hobbyist video gaming day, and the second is about a Games Workshop trainer who we've covered previously in previous hobby nightmares finally writing into the channel. That's going to be very, very, very not controversial, I am sure. Anyway, let's dive in, shall we? Simpguard says... Simpguard, some of these names, man. Hello, Northern Esquire. Hello. This is Simpguard. I have been listening to your channel for quite some time now, typically while I'm painting my minis or doing chores around the house, and I figured I should finally send in one of my hobby nightmares and see if you deem it worthy of a read. If there is too much setup, please feel free to skip to the story. No, I like setup. I like setup. Go for it. As long as it's relevant, we're okay. I worked for 8 years at a friendly local game store in my hometown. I loved my time there. It never really felt like work, even during the bad days. My job prior to this was being a grocery store clerk, and, well, it was awful. Even now, after having long since left the store, I still volunteer my time to help run the Battletech and Warhammer clubs and their weekly events. Nice, okay. The owners of the hobby store, we will call Hans and Doc. Okay. The contrast between the two was stark, to say the least. Hans was tall, clean-shaven, athletically built, and a basketball player, whilst Doc was a 400-pound fisherman who looked like a Viking. I already love these two. Oh my god. However, what brought these two together was a passion of most things nerdy and a desire to give people a safe and fun environment to enjoy games of all kinds. The store was a mix of computer repair / arcade studio, Doc's main responsibilities, and hobby shop, Hans' responsibility. We had a computer room and with multiple Steam accounts that we would rent out by the hour for people to play games such as Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat, World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3, Dota, and etc, etc. Okay, so the one that the store that I was in, well, it wasn't really sort of more of a gaming bar. We used to do the same thing with our PCs, but you could log in with your own Steam account, but all purchases would be locked, so you couldn't purchase anything on your Steam account at the store. That was the only difference. But yeah, you could. I'm not sure why you're handing out things to people. Let them play their own games in the store, maybe. I don't know. Maybe have one store account where there's loads of games on there, just in case somebody hasn't gotten a PC or Steam yet, you know? Anyway. We did not carry Games Workshop at the time, because being a small rural game shop, the company was a nightmare to deal with. Demanding that if we wanted the privilege of carrying their models, the shop was required to keep a minimum of $2,000 of product on hand, which for a fledgling store like ours was not reasonable. Especially when the only people requesting Warhammer were unwashed teenagers and local neckbeards. Hans and Doc also had some prejudice towards Warhammer players for their typical well-known negative stereotypes. Because of this, the store supported War Machine and Battletech, but not Warhammer. Okay, would the War Machine and Battletech not have the same player base as Warhammer? I would think so, but at least it's very, very similar. Correct me if I'm wrong. So with that said, here is one of my stories. The tale of the Great Green Gash. Alrighty. At the time of the store's opening, the PS3 and Xbox 360 had been recently released, and as you know, they had some problems. Red rings of death, and etc, etc. Doc, being a computer hardware savvy individual, decided to start performing console repair as well, which brought in a good amount of business. As well as the store added a console room for people to rent and play console games. Enter the antagonist of our story, Mr. Eddie. Now, Eddie was your quintessential time vampire. Comes in and either buys nothing or purchases a single Magic the Gathering pack and proceeds to consume an hour of your existence, usually covering anime subjects or explaining how the store should drop its prices to match Walmart's pricing, etc. Eddie was an incredibly wide man, even larger than Doc, but Doc was at least 6'2", so his body carried the weight far better than Eddie, who was roughly 5'8". His voice was incredibly high-pitched and easily travelled through the store, and his body carried a fragrance of humid 7-Eleven beef taquitos. Some of these descriptions sometimes. Just going to take a sip of tea, one sec. There we are. Hans hated dealing with him, and any time he entered the store, he would find a reason to depart to the storeroom and leave myself, or more often than not, Doc, to tank the time vampire. We often use the term tank when deciding amongst who the owners and staff whose day it would be to deal with difficult customers. Eddie also frequently played on the computers, which, at first, we didn't mind, because it meant none of us would have to be drained by conversations of why Asuka from Neon Genesis and Evangelion was his favourite anime character, or why the latest Magic the Gathering release is hot garbage. He also typically would rent a computer room from 11 to 3 o'clock-ish, when the store had less traffic, as most of the kids were in school. Doc frequently had to clean the PCs of malware, obviously. After several weeks, we developed a suspicion that Eddie was the principal culprit of downloading this stuff, although we hacked a way of proving it was him, as we had no cameras looking directly into the computer room, and we had some teenagers that frequented the computer room that could also easily possibly be the guilty party. We confronted Eddie politely a few times, and he would swear up and down that he was not the one doing it, and he would let us know if he noticed anybody doing such a thing. Eventually, myself or one of the other staffers would have to check the computer room frequently to make sure there was no surprise catgirl hentai or for a future computer user lying around on one of the screens. This was especially important before the kids arrived once school was done for the day. Yes, very, very important. Now, Eddie never had a lot of money, so we were surprised when Eddie informed us that he had purchased a PS3. Cue the space-time ending engulfing diatribe of why it was the superior console in the console wars, I guess. For the next couple of weeks, we saw very little of Eddie. He would come in for the occasional Magic the Gathering pack and Time Vampire feed, but for the most part, he was absent, much to Hans' relief. Strangely enough, the amount of times that Doc had to clean the PCs of malware decreased. It didn't stop completely, but it definitely decreased. One rainy Thursday afternoon, I'm putting away computer parts and other stock that had recently arrived on site, before giving the bathroom an afternoon scrub. Doc and Hans were then greeted by Eddie's high-pitched voice and taquitos scent. He was carrying his PlayStation and was distraught. Apparently, his PlayStation had started having some issues. Now, I can't quite remember what the issue was, because this is over a decade ago, but it was something to do with it regularly shutting down in the middle of games. Sounds like an overheating issue, to be honest with you. Hans comes to the back and tells me to head to the front and help Doc and help Doc out at the front till, because Eddie has made an appearance. I finish up cleaning the bathroom and head to the front. However, before I had completed my tasks of cleaning, the below interaction between Doc and Eddie had happened. For the next section, I'm going off of what Doc had shared with us in the store debrief at the end of the day. Sure, Ed, let's take a look at your PS3, Doc said. Now, by this time in the day, our computer area was full of kids playing games, and we had several Magic players and War Machine players using our tables, so the store was pretty packed. Doc carried the PlayStation past them all to the console room, that surprisingly had no one renting it at the time, Eddie waddling in tow. He hooked it up to the large wall-mounted TV, and after some struggle, it begins to boot up. At this very moment, I'm unaware what Doc is doing, and I've made it to the front till to cover for Doc and Hans. A boy and girl, around 10 and 8 years old, come in with their very hot mother and want to book the console room for 2 hours, while she goes grocery shopping. I check and see if there's any bookings and tell them, yeah, not a problem. I take the payment and bring the kids over to the shelf where we keep the games and ask the mum if there are any games they can't play. She said nothing more gory than Halo, thank you. So I rule out Gears of War, much to the boys' disappointment. Next I grab the controllers from the charger stand and begin to make my way to the console room. As I'm approaching, Eddie's PlayStation is finishing its sluggish boot up and the screen materialises as I come to the entrance of the room with the kids and mum close behind me. And there she is, with a playful smile, Asuka looking over her naked hips at Eddie and the rest of us, her gash taking up 1/3 of the entire screen, roughly the length of my forearm. I knew what was coming, but, you know. Oh my god. There are some absolute creatures out there, man. There really are. Eddie, what the actual fuck? Doc gasps. I let out a holy shit as I attempt to cover the kid's eyes. Doc goes pale when he sees myself, the mum, and the kids in the room's entranceway. He immediately throws his massive frame in front of the screen as he fumbles to turn the TV off. Eddie is quiet in the corner of the room, looking down at his feet and says, "Oh right, yeah, Asuka. Probably should have warned you about that." I drag the kids back and say, "Let's go get some snacks before we get the game booted up, huh?" We sold canned drinks, chips and candy from the front till. Without saying a word, the mum follows. I am profusely apologising to her, still red in the face from what we all just witnessed. Shortly after, Doc comes out apologising to the mum, explaining why he was booting up the PlayStation on the TV. Eddie quietly waddled out of the store carrying his PS3, trying to act like he was invisible. Doc had assured the mum that it would never happen again. Yeah, I hope you gave them like free candy and like you know, a drink or two, because God's sake. Everyone else in the shop was startled by the brief commotion, but we seemed to downplay it enough that they went back to their games and banter. Surprisingly, the mother took it quite well, and was happy with this with some store credit and free time on the game stations worth several hours for her kids. It seemed the kids didn't really have much time to register what had happened before them on the TV before they were whisked away out of danger zone. At least according to the mum when we discussed it with her later in the day. We didn't see Eddie for a couple of weeks after that, until he meekly returned one day with his PS3. This time, no Asuka to be seen. If you'd like any more of my stories, let me know. I've got quite a few from my time at the local game store. Keep up the great videos and take care. Best from Canada, Simpguard. Cheers, man. Thank you very, very, very much. If you would like more videos like this, then please make sure you're supporting the channel by subscribing. That would be amazing. Absolutely awesome for me if you could do that. Or if you think my videos will have a kick out of one of your friends, if they'll get a kick out of it, or if it'll make their day a bit better, maybe send my videos over to them and help them out. Mental health, as always, very, very, very important. If you do that and they subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. We are on our way to 20,000 subscribers. We're clawing our way there. We got to 15 last month. Well, earlier on this month. So I'm so happy we managed to do that. But there's always bigger hills to climb. So if you could help us reach that goal by subscribing, it's free. That would mean a lot to me. So thank you very much. Also, if you are getting any models recently, then make sure you go over to Composite Games and you give them your patronage. It's in the description down below. Use the promo code Northern Exile to get yourself 5% off anything that they have in stock at checkout. Right. Pale Raven says, "Hey North, just to give you a heart attack, I was a trainer at Games Workshop for many years, bringing through a succession of managers in the manager pipeline to take over stores. Some successfully, and some far less so." Alright, so GW managers on the store have a pretty bad rep. because of the sheer amount of bad, stories we've had about them over the years. If you're not new around here and you're a veteran of the channel, you've heard at least 5 or 6 stories of managers being mistreated. So maybe Pale Raven's going to redress the balance here. Let's see. Carrying on. I never really interacted with you personally, but I do remember seeing you around, and I was one of the many random hands you shook when being walked around the company when you joined as a manager. Well, let me know who you are, man. Not on here, obviously, but email me. Let me know who you are. I'd love to say hello. It saddens me to no end to hear of your experiences at Games Workshop. I can hear your passion for the products and the job as a whole, and so it was a bit of a shame to lose somebody like that. Yours, unfortunately, is not the only story of its kind I have come across or seen developing at the company. I would like to say, though, that successful manager-trainer relationships are the norm here, in my experience. That is not to say that things cannot go wrong from time to time, though. I agree with not fitting into the head office feel of Games Workshop. Some people just don't. I find that those who are tend to be quote-unquote one of the lads, or quote-unquote salt of the earth, and generally cynical but dark-humoured, and they tend not to gel well at Lenton at all. You have to remember, the vast majority of people at Nottingham, at the HQ, are actively intimidated by personalities such as this. They will derisively refer to you as an alpha male or something. A lot of people at head office would have to spend time being actively bullied by people with these personality traits before coming to the company. It is only natural that such personalities will get people's backs up and not allow them to gel. As such, as much as it might not be right in and of itself. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think there are better ways to handle it, though, than ostracizing people that you don't like. Do you know what I mean? To be fair, I don't think you're making a case for that. I think you're being okay. But yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you're saying. Nearly every manager I know at the store who was, similar to me in, who they were and things like that, were generally, most of the time, be chased out of town, eventually, Be like snide comments here. They weren't part of any cliques, because they could sniff you out. If you were a normie and you worked for GW and you weren't bullied in school, they would sniff you out. Within a few days, you'd be sniffed out. Especially if it was at your HQ. If you were at HQ for a long time, they would be, this guy's not one of us. He's not part of the tribe, sort of a thing. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. But if you're one of those guys who goes in like, hey guys, like a big happy smile on your face, yeah, they'll like you. They'll, at least for a while, they'll like you. But if you're one of the guys who goes in there, just one of the guys, and hey guys, how's it going? Shake everyone's hand, yeah, cool, and yeah, and you have that personality of a normal bloke you can have a pint with or something. Eventually, they're gonna find you out. That's just something I came across anyway. One thing I have noticed that I have really not liked is the lack of support for managers at times when they have had issues. But today I wanted to redress the balance a bit by talking about one manager I trained years ago and how sometimes you lot make our jobs as trainers very, very difficult. Hopefully you'll find this amusing. Okay, cool. So there is a reason why games are not played in stores. Regular customers spend far less money in the store than newly recruited ones. Okay, 1 second. I agree. And I've said this before. I totally agree that new customers spend more money than old ones. I've always said that. And I've always said that Games Workshop should be about recruitment. That's what they should be about. My issue comes when you ban all games in stores. That's when the issue comes. I think there is a healthy balance to be sought here, where you have 2 or 3 really nice blokes playing and having a laugh, playing 40k in your store. That's a really good advertisement for your hobby, right? You push them off to the corner, you let them have fun, and people come in, and you can still make your store all about recruitment. As much as I didn't get on with the manager that I worked for, he did that with his store. He had games being played in the store at the back of the store, whereas the front of the store was all about recruitment. Recruitment. And it worked. It worked really well. If you make your store about recruitment above all things, then it will thrive. Okay? Yeah, I agree. Well, not above all things, but you know what I mean. Recruitment should be the most important thing, yes, but it shouldn't be the only thing in the store, you know? The issues start to come into place when a Games Workshop store has low foot traffic numbers to start with. What is a manager supposed to do when no one comes to his store and he's not allowed to advertise? Yeah, that's one thing people don't get. We're not allowed to advertise. We're not allowed to do that. What are they to do if a store down the street sells his products for a hefty discount to steal the small number of customers he would usually have? Not much is the answer, and I don't think we do enough to support that kind of manager at all. Okay, alright. One such manager is someone I would like to call Alfie. So this guy was a decent bloke. Very charismatic, funny and outgoing. Right there I could sense that unless he got his laddish attitude under control, he would rub a lot of people at Lenton the wrong way. He was in essence a decent manager though. Dude, you just listed a load of nice personality traits. Charismatic, funny and outgoing are not negative things. Just no. He would work hard and make sure the store ran perfectly. He'd have fun with customers and would run recruitment events at the store like a pool-style tournament of players and of parents and children playing on the introduction board with single squads. Winner stays on. Pretty awesome, really. His numbers started to rise, and I was happy to leave him at the store doing his business. One day, months later, I got a call from Alfie. A new trade account had opened up down the road from him, obviously selling Games Workshop products at 20+% off the recommended retail price, whilst the store was, of course, locked to the full recommended retail price. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, a trade account is any store that's not branded as Games Workshop that sells Games Workshop products. So if you've gone to your local game store that's not affiliated with Games Workshop, but they sell Warhammer, that's a trade account, and they're allowed to sell Games Workshop products at a big discount. Alright, cool. I told him to simply focus on making sure the experience in his store made up for the lack of a discount and things would work out well. That's bollocks. That's bollocks, mate. And you know that's bollocks. You know that's bollocks. You know full well that that's not gonna... If I'm a parent, I don't care how nice you are, Mr. Games Workshop man. If I'm spending all of this money on overpriced models, I'm not paying full price where I can pay 25% less down the road. I don't care how nice you are. I might come back with the models I bought from the other store so my kid can play in your store, but I'm not buying from your store. Alright? The issue here is the price. That's the issue. It's the price. It's not playing games in your store. A few weeks later, he called again, sounding kinda demoralised, and asked if I could head down there and give him a training day on how to recruit new customers. He tried it for a while and it was working, but without the foot traffic, there was little he could do. I did so, and we had a good day of greeting customers, and I critiqued his style of approaching them. He was doing really well and didn't really need my help in recruiting new customers. I could see though that the numbers were down in terms of foot traffic. Really down. This was nothing to do with him, but I knew the head office would look at us blaming the opening of the trade account down the road as an excuse, and they would want to fire this guy anyway. I told him to keep his head down, keep plugging away, and ignore the store numbers. He was doing a good job. If something came of it, I'd stand by him and his report of the store if it came to it with head office. My head now on the line as well, I left. Well, that's good of you, man. That's good of you. You're a good trainer. You gave some bad advice there, but about, you know, you're making sure your store's worth the extra money. Nonsense. That's the only bad thing you've done there. Everything else has been spot on. Really good stuff. About a week later, I was forwarded, a call from a very irate manager of the local trade account next to this guy's store. What's he done? On his day off, Alfie had just had enough and decided to do something about his lowering numbers of customers. He'd taken the entire introduction board from his store and set it up directly outside of the trade account store, snagging customers on their way in with a free Space Marine model, this was fine, and an invitation to come to his store to paint and learn the hobby. He ran intro games there all day and ended up with a large crowd around him, drawing out the store and sapping a lot of people from the trade account in the process. I headed to the store on his first day back to find it busy. New customers had come in from his 2-day stint of sabotaging his competition. I will be honest, I admired his conviction and his nerve, and I told him so. I also told him that snaking another store that sells our product was not a good look, and that I had been told to give him an official verbal warning, and that this was that warning. I must have looked a bit sheepish and apologetic as he put a hand on my shoulder, told me everything was fine, and in his other hand was his letter of resignation, his 2 weeks notice. He told me he'd found something else in the meantime, but wanted to give this job one last hurrah, one last big push to see if he could get it to work, and that his weekend journey to the competition accomplished 2 things. Number 1, if it worked and he got away with it, then it was a way to recruit more customers by going to them instead of waiting for them to come to him. And number 2, if it didn't work and he got sacked, it served as a big fuck you to that store for stealing most of his customer base. Fair dues, yeah, fair dues. I couldn't fault his logic, and I told him so. I told him it was a damn shame to lose him, but accepted the letter. How could I not? On the drive back home that night, I was honestly bummed out. And this happens a lot. I bet it happened with your trainer too, at least your second one from what I heard. It's really hard to see good people leave the company on technicalities like this, especially when they seem totally enamoured with the idea of growing the hobby. I got home that night and wallowed for a bit, knowing that once again a guy's job had been engineered away from him by company policy and sheer circumstance and dumb luck. It sucked, and really is the worst part of the job. The next guy we got into the store was a shy nerd who loved being a part of the company. A real smiling face of the brand kind of deal. Essentially, the kind of person headquarters loves. He's been there ever since, and the store has remained on life support. At the end of the day, I really do think we need to eventually treat stores as recruitment centres and nothing more. Those times are coming around the corner sooner than people may think. Anyway, thank you for reading. Love the channel despite you eviscerating my colleagues every once in a while. Cheers, Pale Raven. Cheers, man. That's a really cool story, and thank you very much for sending it in. I think, in all honesty, some of the advice you gave was fine, but I think what this does show is how much the actual hands of trainers are tied sometimes at Games Workshop. Do you know what I mean? About how many times you've got, general advice to give him, which is fine, but then there's a lot of other times where you give him advice that's just not helpful. But that's the only thing you can say. The only thing you can say to a trade account opening down the road is, be better. Because what are you going to do? He can't do a sale. He can't do a sale, and he can't advertise his store. It's almost like you're setting him up to fail when you do that. When you open a trade account near a Games Workshop, you are setting that Games Workshop up to fail. Because there is no way a parent who is responsible will pay you, as a Games Workshop manager, full retail price for your overpriced products when they can get them for 25% off up the road. And especially not in an economy like ours that has been circling the drain of a recession for the past 6 to 10 years, right? You are signing a Games Workshop store's death warrant if you let a trade account open up anywhere near them. Okay? The store I worked for as a staff member didn't have a trade account nearby. They were in the next town along. They were actually quite far away, right? Well, not quite far away, but they were definitely in the next town along. It was far more convenient for people in our area to come to our Games Workshop than it would be for them to go to that trade account. In fact, the people from our store tried the trade account, but they couldn't get their heads around it because they went there on other days and it was a longer drive, it was a longer bus ride, train ride, and they couldn't be bothered, so they came back. You know, convenience is the aim of the game here. Games Workshop stores should be in the centre of cities, you know, or the centre of big towns, and trade accounts should be outside of those areas. So anybody that you give stock to needs to be outside of those areas. If they're in the city, they need to be in another part of the city, nowhere near the Games Workshop store. That's if you want to keep your Games Workshop stores as retail stores. If you want them to be like Apple stores, where they just recruit people into this really expensive hobby, then again, the trade account shouldn't be right next door. It should be nearby, maybe, but not right next door. Because then, no one's going to go to the GW anyway. Why would you? Right? Okay. I love you a long time. I will speak to you probably over the weekend. Maybe. I might do a stream over the weekend. If not, I will see you again on Monday for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.